Only 24 more shopping days until Christmas. I'm Jeff Wagner, filling in for Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Well, good morning. Welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, large numbers of Americans traveled millions of miles to spend Thanksgiving with their families. Even larger numbers then bailed out of their celebration to hit the stores in search of deals. Personally, I'll take a turkey coma to a $98 Blu-ray disc player at Walmart any day of the week. The Milwaukee Brewers have announced performers for 3 post-game concerts next season. They're Joe Nichols, OAR, and the Goo Goo Dolls. Who said that the 90s were dead? And winter parking rules for the city of Milwaukee go into effect Monday. The city says the rules are designed to help snowplows clear the streets. They're also designed to help the city generate a bunch of extra revenue from parking citations and towing fees. Don't worry, though, once Mayor Barrett gets his streetcar built, no one will need cars anyways. But first this morning, the grand jury decides and the public reacts. A grand jury in Ferguson, Missouri declined to issue any charges in connection with the shooting of Michael Brown by Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. In response, thousands of people took to the streets to protest. Some protests quickly deteriorated as protesters rioted, looted, and set fire to buildings. In Milwaukee, a smaller number of protesters used the Michael Brown verdict to call attention to the ongoing investigation into the death of Dontre Hamilton at Red Arrow Park last summer. These protests were largely peaceful, although 2 police officers were injured when a group tried to force their way into the Bradley Center during a Bucks game. So, did the grand jury in Ferguson get it right? And what does the Ferguson decision mean for Milwaukee? Joining me on the panel this morning, Tracy Johnson of the Commercial Association of Realtors, State Senator Alberta Darling, Milwaukee Alderman Bob Donovan, and State Representative Jim Ott. Tracy, let's start with you. Did the grand jury get it right?
The grand jury got it right. I mean, they were looking at so much evidence. They were listening to so much competing testimony. All they had to do was look at the facts, and I think that's exactly what they did. I think they got it right, and I think God bless them.
Now, Bob Donovan, obviously a lot of people are not satisfied with the grand jury verdict. Is there anything that could be done to make people happy, you think?
Well, you know, I think a couple points. First of all, on the grand jury, the fact is the evidence is what it is, and the forensic evidence, all the testimony seemed to point, they made their decision. So we have to deal with that. But I'm going to tell you this, Jeff. The reality is this city and a lot of other urban areas across America have some real challenges when it comes to police-community relations. Now, how we deal with that down the road remains to be seen, but that is critical that we do take those steps.
Now, Alberta Darling, to Bob's point, after the verdict was announced, the decision not to issue charges, you had protests across the country, including protests in Milwaukee. Are authorities handling those protests sufficiently?
Well, I think in Ferguson, the governor absolutely did not. He had the National Guard. I don't know why he didn't use the National Guard. I don't know why the decision was released at night when everybody could have the cloud of night screening them. But you know what? It affects Milwaukee, because here we had Ferguson. That happened in August. We've had this happen in June, and still we've had no justice for Milwaukee. We've got to make a decision, and I think Bob is right. You have to believe in due process. You have to believe the grand jury did their best to make the right decision. You have to believe that the evidence was what it was and it gave that decision. But what we have to do as citizens is have respect for everyone. A man is killed, a police officer's work is ended.
Now, Jim Ott, that's kind of interesting to me, because if you look at the reaction to the decision in Ferguson, you see the polls start breaking down along racial lines. I mean, is this the O.J. Simpson verdict for 2014, that some people are just going to see this through a racial prism, regardless of what the evidence might be?
I think that probably will always be the case in situations like this, Jeff. And I guess when you look at what the grand jury had to look at, you had cases where witnesses' testimony conflicted one another. You had cases where witnesses were interviewed on tape the first time, and then they found out that their testimony didn't match the forensic evidence, and they changed their testimony to match the forensic evidence, and then you had witnesses who just came forward and They were conflicting what the autopsy showed, which apparently there were 2 of them. So, you know, if you look at it on an evidence basis, I don't think there's anything else that grand jury could have done. And if they would have said, let's go have a trial based on what?
Well, see, that was going to be my question, because Jim, I don't know, people know that you're a recovering lawyer,
Yes,
as I am.
Hopefully recovering.
Would it have just been easier for the district attorney to have issued charges and then let the case go to court and then let the jury decide, you know, once you've had a public trial? Would that have been easier?
Well, it may have been easier, Jeff, and you as a recovering lawyer also know you don't have trials based on trying to exonerate someone. You have trials because you think you're going to have beyond a reasonable doubt that the person is guilty. That's what the prosecutors generally look at. So to have a trial, it would go counter to the way the criminal justice system works.
Well, yeah, because I think what people need to understand, too, is it's as a prosecutor, it's unethical to bring charges in a case where you don't believe you can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, I had that happen on a number of occasions where you thought, okay, I think maybe somebody's done something, but I know I can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, Tracy, what does this mean for Milwaukee? I mean, Bob was talking about community relations. Can we get over this?
Well, I think our community has a lot of work to do, and working right downtown, I see the protests up and down Water Street to the courthouse. I think that when we finally make a decision on Dontre Hamilton, I think we are going to have riots. I think the police are going to need to be ready. And it's not because the intent of the protests are evil or malice. I think it's because you continue to have those individuals who want to incite violence, and that's unfortunate.
Bob, should the police have been making more arrests in Milwaukee all along?
Well, I'm always been a believer, Jeff. Certainly everyone has the right to protest if you're an American citizen. Having said that, you should do it within the parameters. And your right to protest should never infringe on other people's rights. I don't like the fact that these individuals have continue to be allowed to walk down the streets, no permit, disrupting traffic. I have concerns about that.
Well, if I were to offer unsolicited advice, some of it might also go to the news media. If you stopped covering every time a protest was announced, maybe a lot of the protests wouldn't happen. Okay, what has your glass half full? What has your glass half empty? Let's go around the table. We start with Tracy Johnson.
All right, my glass is half full because downtown development is booming. The 833, Couture, Park East, a new arena, and Northwestern Mutual. My glass is half empty because there are groups and individuals who stand in the way of progress, not considering the opportunity cost that their actions might have.
Alberta Darling.
Hey, Jeff, my glass is half full because the elections are over and we can continue to move Milwaukee, Wisconsin forward. But my glass is half empty because with major issues like failing schools, public safety, and a sinking city hall, and a pro sports team possibly leaving, Mayor Barrett says he won't back down on the trolley. Really?
Bob Donovan.
Well, that's precisely what makes my glass half empty, because the mayor has doubled down on the streetcar. Yet it's half full because people continue to call my office and email my office, residents interested in volunteering to help circulate the petitions against it.
And Jim Ott.
Jeff, the glass is half empty because the Obama administration is about to roll out ridiculous regulations on ozone and carbon. The glass is half full because the next Congress and perhaps even the U.S. Supreme Court will likely intervene.
And my glass is half empty because the early return of winter ended my golf season early. It's half full, though, because spring's going to be here before we know it, right? Next on Sunday Insight, the mayor doubles down on the downtown trolley. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett has decided to double down on its streetcar projects. Originally estimated to cost $60-some million, the cost has now risen to over $120 million. Originally paid for with federal transit money, the mayor now wants to use revenue from a downtown tax incremental financing district to pay for a large portion of the project. In effect, this means property tax dollars from other needs are going to be used to pay for the trolley. Milwaukee Alderman Bob Donovan is pushing for a binding referendum to give the voters of the city of Milwaukee an opportunity to weigh in before the mayor starts tearing up the streets. So, is a referendum a good idea, and is the downtown trolley supported by a majority of city residents? Well, let's start off with Milwaukee Alderman Bob Donovan. Bob, tell us about this.
Well, Jeff, I'm hoping that we get this petition off the ground, and I'm hoping the citizens, from the beginning, I've asked simply for them to have an opportunity to voice their concerns on this very controversial issue. But let me explain this. The mayor is proposing, with the use of these TIF districts, that this area of downtown is somehow blighted, and that without the streetcar, we would simply not see any future development. That line of reasoning is absolutely absurd.
This is the area where the couture is.
Yes, right,
Oh,
right.
okay.
That's how you can use a TIF. It's got to be a blighted neighborhood. That the state legislation created that. Yeah.
Okay. Alberta Darling, does this trolley make any sense to you at all?
No, it doesn't at all. If you look at all the projects on the table, the arena, $300 million to get our cultural centers up to speed, and also lots of other projects that people want to do. The crime issue is one, the schools, I mentioned those earlier. How can we be talking about spending that amount of money on a trolley? I just don't get it. We have to have priorities, and we have to look at this time as an opportunity to really grow Milwaukee and grow the state. It's an exciting time, and to zero in on a trolley is absolutely absurd.
Jim Ott, I mean, the state legislature, of course, created these tax incremental financing districts. Is what Tom Barrett is talking about using this type of, is this what TIF districts were all about?
I think TIF districts were, you developed the district first, and then there was development, and you got money, and that helped to pay for the infrastructure and so on. And this is kind of the opposite way. The thing I find, and by the way, I think Alderman Donovan's suggestion for a referendum is the way to go on this. Let the people decide who have to pay for this. The interesting thing to me, Jeff, is that the mayor is kind of pushing this as it's going to be a part of this great transportation system, including bus, auto, and rail. The fact is, this is not going to add anything to the transportation system. It's much more of kind of an aesthetic thing. You know, it's cool to have a streetcar.
And will potentially cannibalize the bus system. Okay, quickly. Tracy Johnson, you're a hip young professional. Is this going to attract hundreds of thousands of young urban professionals who are going to flock to Milwaukee to ride the trolley?
Well, there's no doubt that Milwaukee has a stated problem maintaining and attracting young people, especially the educated ones that would work downtown. I'd like to give the millennials more credit than saying it's just about a streetcar, because it's about low crime, it's about low poverty, it's about a vibrant entertainment district. Transit and transportation is important, it's got to be comprehensive, and it doesn't rely just on streetcar.
To me, it's just crazy. I appreciate that reasonable people can disagree. To me, this is just crazy. You may not want to hear it, but we're going to tell you anyways. Let's dish out some unsolicited advice. Tracy Johnson.
My unsolicited advice is for Chief Ed Flynn. Please continue to passionately articulate the important statistics and issues of urban crime. Your now viral response to critics at the November 6th Police Commission meeting is a return to the Ed Flynn we can get behind.
Alberta Darling.
To Mayor Tom Barrett, get over it. It's time to move on and deal with the big issues that are holding Milwaukee back. Wasting money on a trolley won't keep the public safe, it won't educate our kids, and it won't bring millennials to the downtown.
Bob Donovan.
Well, my advice, like Alberta's, goes directly to the mayor. Start paying attention to Milwaukee's real problems.
Jim Ott.
Jeff, with the recent cold snap, our lakes and rivers are freezing over earlier than normal. A good time to remind my fellow ice fishermen, proceed with caution.
And my unsolicited advice is for community leaders in Milwaukee. It's been over 3 weeks since 5-year-old Layla Peterson was shot and killed. Someone knows who did this and has not come forward to cooperate with police. Maybe a little community outrage could be channeled into seeking justice for this crime victim. And next on Sunday Insight is the jock tax, the way to raise money for a new arena. Well, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver was in Milwaukee this week to meet with community leaders about a downtown arena project. Proponents argue that the new arena would just be one step in a larger revitalization of downtown that would include retail, commercial, and residential development. The most common public financing being discussed is the so-called jock tax. In other words, the state would issue about $150 million in bonds to be repaid by income taxes that NBA players pay in the state. Now, this still leaves about $350 million to be raised from private sources. Will a new arena really be a catalyst for downtown development? And is the jock tax a feasible way to raise revenue? State Senator Alberta Darling, you're on the Joint Finance Committee. Is this a potential?
Well, you know, we need a plan from the city leaders. We need to have something on the table that we can actually say yes or no and evaluate. I would really like to see this as a major redevelopment of downtown, a major entertainment district. I think it's a huge opportunity for us. So I'd like to have us really look at it as a multifaceted project, as you pointed out. We will not do a regional sales tax. We will not do that. The jock tax is something we could look at, though, because it would be about $10 million coming from the jocks that would go into bonding of about $100 million, which could be a partner with the public and private sector. I think we have to look at this because it's an opportunity for Wisconsin and Milwaukee to really go forward. And if they leave, if the Bucks leave, we lose the $10 million. So we have to look at it that way too. We have a lot to lose if we don't look at this project seriously.
Jim, let's talk a little bit about the politics of this, because there's 63 Republicans in the state assembly right now. Lots of them are from outside of Milwaukee. If this is going to pass politically, are a lot of Democrats in the state legislature going to have to take leadership roles and push for this? I don't see Republicans doing all the heavy lifting on this.
It's going to have to be a bipartisan issue. There'd be bipartisan support and bipartisan opposition, Jeff. I think from the Republican point of view, I think we don't want to raise taxes on the general side. This issue with the jock tax, which is, by the way, kind of interesting. I don't know if anybody ever heard of this until about a week ago, that this is money that if we use that, and just that, we're taking money that the city would lose anyways if the Bucks leave. And then if you at least use it toward a new arena, we get a new arena.
Because it's not new revenue. This is money that the NBA players are playing already, and it would just be diverted to the arena. Okay, Bob Donovan, let's talk about this. How important is a new arena to the redevelopment of downtown Milwaukee?
Well, I think potentially it could be really fabulous for this community if it's more than just an arena for the Bucks to play their games. And I think that opportunity is still here for us to really make something that this community can be proud of, that can serve this community for decades and decades to come. So we need to find a way to keep the Bucks here, to build this arena that's something we can be proud of, and hopefully be a catalyst for other developments downtown.
Tracy Johnson, is this going to happen?
This is going to happen. This is going to happen. You've seen the really smart people who are in the private sector who are investing dollars. They're smart investors. They're billionaires for a reason. And this is going to happen. And I think that we're going to be looking at west of the river. I think it's going to happen, and it's going to be that multifaceted entertainment district. These owners see the big picture, and they know that we want to think big.
Well, I think it happens if you get to a critical mass of private dollars. I mean, unlike Miller Park, I mean, if you get to $300 or $350 million in private financing, then I think it makes an easier sell in the legislature, unlike Miller Park. What is it that you don't get? Let's go around the table. Tracy Johnson.
What I don't get is why some individuals take advantage of peaceful protests to cause violence, disrupt the peace, and ultimately distract us from the issues that actually deserve our attention.
Alberta Darling.
I'm on a theme why Mayor Barrett makes a major stand on a silly streetcar instead of the issues that really affect his community, and why the people put up with it.
Bob Donovan.
Jeff, what I don't get is how Alderman Bauman, my good friend and colleague, can foolishly claim that I want to go back to the Laverne and Shirley days, when in reality it was Laverne and Shirley who rode the streetcar. Believe me, I don't want to go there.
Jim Ott.
What I don't get, Jeff, is how some Black Friday shoppers, that's been reported from time to time, get into pushing and shoving matches while shopping for Christmas presents.
And me, what I don't get is why some media outlets and a lot of the usual suspects continue to be obsessed with the release of tens of thousands of emails from Scott Walker's days as Milwaukee County Executive. That sound you hear, it's 2010 calling and demanding its non-scandal scandal back. Next on Sunday Insight, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. First, though, here's your morning news update. Well, it's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Tracy Johnson, you're first.
My winners this week are the 12 children who were adopted earlier this week as part of Milwaukee's Adoption Day. They will be spending the holidays and the rest of their lives with families who love them. My loser is Bill Cosby. The once beloved comedian, warranted or not, has been judged and found guilty in the court of public opinion.
Alberta Darling.
Hey, my winner, the Green Bay Packers. What a thrilling year it has been. A big test happens later today when they play the New England Patriots, and go Packers. My losers of the week are the outside agitators that have disrupted and burned parts of Ferguson, Missouri. They have no reason to be there except to cause harm and shame on them.
Bob Donovan.
Well, my losers, Jeff, are all the law-abiding citizens and business owners who have suffered so terribly these last many months in Ferguson, Missouri. And my winners are all the wonderful people who give so much of themselves in the service of others all year long, but most especially during the holidays.
That's nice. Jim Ott.
I would also say this week's losers are the people of Ferguson, Missouri, who've had their lives turned upside down by out-of-control criminal mobs. Those would include small business owners who have seen their livelihood destroyed and their employees who no longer have jobs. What a shame. On the bright side, it's Thanksgiving weekend, and God has blessed our state and our country in many ways. We really do have a great deal to be thankful for.
And my losers this week are all the race baiters and anarchists who have exploited the death of Michael Brown for their own various purposes. My winner is Mike McCarthy, who with 90 wins just passed Vince Lombardi to become the second winningest coach in Packers history. Curly Lambeau, look out. Only 119 more wins to go. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeff Wagner. Enjoy the rest of the Thanksgiving weekend and have a great week.